Well, good afternoon and welcome to another edition of our Lunch and Learn series. I'm David Dundee, Director of Education, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here at my favorite science museum. And as always, I'd like to tell you about some exciting things coming up here at the museum. Our next Lunch and Learn will be Fossils in Florida. Our curator, Ryan Rooney, will be here on October 16th to talk about that. Our next big event is Heavy Metal in Motion. We'll be bringing all sorts of big machines here to the museum. We have a Cobra helicopter landing. We have another State Patrol helicopter coming, SWAT team, and we have some big trucks and fire engines, and we have some airport equipment coming. The big tugs that pull the airplane, one of them will be here, and all sorts of cool stuff like that. And that'll be on Saturday, October 12th. And then on October 26th, we have a Halloween whodunit. We have a mystery in the museum. So if you'd like to come with your family for a special Halloween treat, that will be that night on October 26th. You do need to buy tickets for that ahead of time, so please don't forget about that. And this Saturday, we still have some spaces left for our night sky for Cub Scouts and Scouts workshop here at the museum. Just a few spots left, so please look on our website because we're going to close that in just a couple of days. All right, well, today we're talking about eclipse chasers, and people around the world go chasing solar eclipses, not lunar eclipses because you can see them on half the globe at a time, but solar eclipses are a little more specialized. You got to be just at the right place and the right time to see a solar eclipse, and people go traveling all over the place. And this past April, all of us, well, except for Karisa, we left behind, we actually traveled out to see the total solar eclipse, and we'll be talking about that. And I want to introduce our learned panel that's behind me. Way over on the end there, Nick Johnson. He's a native of Cartersville. He is also a NASA ambassador. He's helped us out with many, many events, and he's also an expert astrophotographer, and he has been a solar system ambassador for the past 4 years and has helped us in the observatory and planetarium a lot over the years. Next to him is Chris Thompson, a frequent volunteer, and he helps us with our Build and Blast workshops, and he is the one who tells us about the latest NASA rockets, and he's also a solar system ambassador. And if you're interested in the solar system ambassador program, these two guys can tell you all about it. And Chris is also president of the Meteorite Association of Georgia, and so he talks. He's an expert on meteorites and meteorite collecting as well. And then next up, Bob Gossman, who is one of our top volunteers here at the museum. He's a retired chemist, and he has spent 35 years in the commercial nuclear power industry, so you have glowing reports about him. And he's an amateur NASA historian. He's also volunteered here in the planetarium, observatory, outreach, and even volunteered here as a bartender. So he is a spirited volunteer here at the museum. And finally, at the end, we have our own astronomer, Karisa Zdanky, and she has been with us for the past 3 years and commanding our planetarium and observatory and helping us to change over to our new wonderful system. If you haven't seen it yet, you need to come see our new 4K system in the planetarium. It's awesome. So with that, we're going to start our program, and we're going to start with Karisa, and I'm going to pass the microphone to her.
All right, so like David announced, hello, I'm Karisa Zdanky. I'm the astronomer here at Tellus. And so while I was here for this last eclipse, we had a partial. I have seen the last 3 eclipses in the continental U.S., all partials. But I figured I would just go through all of them and kind of walk you guys through what I have seen. So to start with the oldest, I'm originally from Chicagoland, so at the time I was at the Adler Planetarium. I just want you to think about how insane this event was. So Chicago, the 3rd largest city in the U.S., the Adler Planetarium is the only space-based museum in Chicago, entirely space-based museum in Chicago, as far as I know. And they are also offering free admission. Free admission to the first major eclipse in the continental U.S. since 1979. So it was crazy. That day there was over 60,000 people, so it was very big. You can see why, kind of what the crowds were like. And so from Chicago, it was about 86% partial, and it was also hazy that day. So while you could still see the sun through the haze, it wasn't perfectly clear, but people were still there. And actually, near the very end, I remember during maximum, I stepped outside for about 2 minutes to take a look with my glasses, looked, and I was like, all right, back to work. And then a guest asked me for my glasses because they had run out of glasses. So I handed them my glasses and just went back inside, went back to work. So that was very fun. Now, the annular eclipse, you'd imagine it's even crazier. At that point, I was here, so it's even a little bit crazier when you are in charge of these events. So I don't have any actual pictures of the annular eclipse, but this is from online. This is what it looked like that day from here, so a little bit more than 50%. Also, it just so happened to coincide with our heavy metal event, like David announced. So heavy metal is our homage to big machines. So there was a lot of people here for that. We had, 368 people in 4 hours come through the observatory, so that was really fun. However, there was also, like helicopters landing and stuff, so I think people were excited about the helicopters. So even though it was a little over 50% for this annular, and even if you have like maximum coverage for an annular, that would only be around like 90%, like give or take a few percentages. So it wasn't as bad as 50% sounds. But this was a good preview for April. Now, was anybody here at Tellus in April? A few people? Okay, very cool. So this is what we could see from Tellus. This is actually a picture from my phone, just zoomed in, so sorry, it's kind of pixelated. We had 84%, like I said. Since it was not during heavy metal, we did still have like an entire event for it, but the eclipse was the point of that event. It didn't coincide with another, so we knew that everybody who was here on that day was specifically there to see the eclipse. One thing, of course, that I had to do was make pinhole projectors. So it's basically small gaps can act like tiny camera lenses. So the one on the right, I'll start with that one. That's my shadow, me just making near the end of the eclipse, so you can see the crescent isn't as small as it was during maximum totality. Not totality, the maximum eclipse. My favorite picture is the one on the left, so that was near maximum, and I was just using nature's pinhole projectors, so that is the shadow of a tree, and you can just see all like the, I don't know, 100-ish maybe, eclipses going through the tree. And that day at Tellus, we had 482 people in the observatory the whole time we were open, and that was very quick, so everyone in line was able to see something. We had about 1,750 people in the museum, which is very big for us. And then even just on site during the eclipse, we had around 2,600 is our estimate for that. So that's over 800 people that came just to have fun and explore the eclipse with us. So those are the 3 eclipses that I've seen, and I will hand it off to the next person.
All right, hello everybody. At the risk of overshadowing my colleagues here, that's my attempt. I'm going to talk about my experience with the total eclipse. I'm not going to get into a lot of the technicals because I think the experience is really the ultimate. So I have seen several partial eclipses over the years, including I was here in 2017 working at Tellus when it was 97% total coverage. In 2024, I was determined not to miss it. Now, fortunately, my wife has relatives in Texas, so we took off, drove to McKinney. My 6-inch telescope brought that with us. We get there, and I set up in a neighborhood where her aunt lives, and we were set up on the sidewalk. Now, the day of, I'm all excited. I get up and I look outside, and guess what? It's cloudy. And I just keep looking at the weather reports, and I'm hoping that the clouds are going to clear. And it did brighten up a little bit, but we were still dealing with high clouds. And during all this, as my disappointment and my depression is starting to set in, I am being trolled by a colleague on this panel who was 2 hours south saying, "Hey, guess what? It's clear here." We'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk later. But, I was still excited. And my goal during this whole time was to really take it all in. What's happening with the environment? How are the people reacting to it? And, of course, being, a telescope operator and planetarium operator, I was interested in the eclipse itself. And at first, I set up the telescope, and now people from the neighborhood are starting to come around, and I go into museum mode and start explaining what's happening, and I'm ensuring that everybody has the solar glasses and are using them properly. And the eclipse starts, and it's just mind-boggling. And the excitement really came when my wife saw the diamond ring for the first time. That last little bit of sun peeking out over the edge of the moon. And you'll get to see pictures from others. I didn't take a lot of pictures. I only took 2 because I just wanted to watch everything. But then the moment of totality came. And a calm came over everything. The street lights come on. You start hearing crickets. The temperature drops. And of course, we have the oohs and ahs from all the people who are watching. Now, as I mentioned, I only took 1 photo, and there it is. You can see the fuzziness from the high clouds. But you could still see a little bit of the corona around the edge of the moon, and I was even 2 pink prominences. Now, a prominence is just the piece of the sun's, some of the sun's plasma trying to escape out into space. And I could see 2 of those just with my naked eye. No binoculars, no telescope. I think there was 3 or 4 that were visible. That the clouds, we were able to see 2 of them. And that was a bit emotional for me. And then we got to see the diamond ring, and my wife was all excited. One more picture. This is through my telescope. Now, I am bound and determined to see my second total eclipse. So I am already looking forward to 2028 in Australia and New Zealand. So that's my plan. All right.
Thank you, Bob. So my passion has always been throughout my life astronomy, and I spent my first 14 years at Tellus as the astronomer before I crossed to the dark side of administration. And but this particular eclipse, I was determined to see the total eclipse. I wasn't going to stick around in Cartersville, and so I decided I would head to Waco. And the reason I headed for Waco, well, one of the reasons was the city of Waco hired me to come out there. That's paid my way there. But the other reason is that this is the path of the eclipse on that day in April, and you can see it goes right through the country. So astronomers around the country were go, and it wasn't a matter of where it was going to be total, because you can see it makes a whole strip from all the way from southwestern part of the country all the way up through Maine. It was predicting 6 months ahead of time what's the weather going to be like. And so all of us decided that, well, April is going to be clear at midday. And of course, the day before in Waco, the prediction for Eclipse Day was thunderstorms. And so there was a discussion throughout the night, should we climb in our car and make it for further north or go further south? And so as the day wore on, luckily the clouds broke early. It was clear, as I was politely telling Bob how nice the weather was that day. But here it is close up in Texas. You can see Waco was right next to the center line. So we were getting a whole 4 minutes of totality. So if you're in the center of the shadow of the eclipse, you're getting the maximum number of minutes of totality. And if you're over on the edge, yeah, you'll see a total eclipse, but it'll come and go very, very quickly. And a lot of folks ask, well, gee, I'm in a place where I'm going to see a 99% eclipse, and nah. Because if you don't see 100%, there's a huge difference. And I tell people the difference between a partial eclipse and a total eclipse is you can see a beautiful picture of a bowl of chocolate ice cream, but if you see a total eclipse, you get to eat the ice cream. That's the difference. So definitely worth it to get into the path of totality. And that's why people travel all these places around the world to see the total eclipse. So I knew when I was going that we were going to get a nice 4 minutes of totality. 4 minutes is a long time. It's a long time to be able to see the eclipse. And so the day before, they actually had at their civic center, they had several exhibitors from around the country. They had about 10,000 people show up to this. And so I stole this activity from my colleague Karisa, making eclipses. So there I am in action, eclipses, and my wife was with me, and it was a very serious affair, as you could see. And I also got a close-up picture of the actual eclipse, and you can see the mechanics here of the moon covering the sun. This is a high-resolution image that my colleagues didn't get. But I got to do a talk there and talk about the eclipse to folks that day. And then Eclipse Day, there's me with my eclipse tie, of course. And this was the beginning of the eclipse. And again, I just put an app on my cell phone. This is not with a telescope. And you just put a filter over your phone, and a solar filter, and you begin to see it. I, of course, like Bob, I looked at the ground, and the leaves on trees make tiny little pinhole cameras, and you can see all the little crescents on the ground, which I thought was really cool. And then at totality, yeah, you could see the beauty of the eclipse. And like with Bob, we noticed how much the temperature would drop, and in fact, the street lights came on, and you could hear the crickets start up, and it was really fascinating to see all of that happen. So it was a gorgeous eclipse, and they had a poster too, so I thought that was kind of cool. And so the experience in Waco is the only reason I would have traveled to Waco to see an eclipse. There wasn't a whole lot else there, but there was the Dr. Pepper Museum. Dr. Pepper, in fact, was invented in Waco, Texas. Who knew? But anyway, if you're a Dr. Pepper fan, that's a place to go. So with that, I'm going to pass this on to the next.
Good afternoon. My name's Chris Thompson, and I'm one of the 2 solar system ambassadors up here along with Nick. So, my thoughts on the most recent solar eclipses that were visible from the United States. David touched on it. Why? Why do people travel such distances, hours, days in some cases, to go to a place where for a few seconds, maybe a couple of minutes, you're going to see something? And it's because that something is unique, it's visceral, and it's profound. So in our case, I'm going to go back a little bit to Lake Barkley, Kentucky, and 2 minutes and 30 seconds. 2.5 minutes, that's it. My wife and 4 kids, we traveled 5 hours, about 300 miles to go from here to Kentucky. We spent a couple days doing horseback riding. We did some fishing. It was all in preparation for 2 minutes and 30 seconds on a Monday afternoon. That was August 21st, 2017. And that experience just changed us. It was magical. It was short, but it left an impression that will last a lifetime. So this is seconds before totality, what David talked about with 99.9%. And this is the view that everybody else had, the people that didn't leave Atlanta, that stayed in Cartersville or Marietta or downtown Atlanta, like many of my friends. And I kept telling them, you gotta go to totality. Because this is what you see right up until that happens. And that's a few seconds after the previous picture. So I talked to all of our kids in preparation for this presentation. And our oldest child, Kitty, described it as more than the things you can see. So as she described it, unlike a picture of a waterfall or a volcano, when you look at something and you can kind of get it, you see it, and you say, okay, I understand what that is. Looking at a picture of an eclipse can tell you the geometry. It can tell you, okay, the sun and the moon and the earth are all lined up and you got a shadow, and okay, I get that. But being in totality, it's different. It's that feeling, that visceral, change your life kind of feeling. My wife noticed the birds and the insects. Before the eclipse, the insects and the birds, they get quiet. They're going to sleep. It's the middle of the afternoon, and yet it's getting quiet. And then afterwards, they break out into song again. So we listened as we listened to the insects and the birds fade away, and we watched the streamers of the corona in silence, and were treated to a symphony when the sun returned and bathed us in its warm light. Nothing like it. So friends of ours, Graham Ensor, the guy on the left, came from England to visit with friends here in Atlanta, and he and Dave Giesling, the guy on the right, went to North Carolina. They took the opportunity to take a lunar meteorite and cast the shadow of the moon on a piece of the moon. So it's not just the 2.5 minutes, it's the experience with friends and family. These are a coworker of mine with her family. They took some eclipse glasses and drove from Atlanta up to Blue Ridge. They only had a few seconds. They were right on the edge of totality, but they were in totality. And Kim told me it just mesmerized the kids. They were totally amazed by the experience. So there we were in 2017 planning for 2024 and going to Waco, Texas. We go to these lengths of traveling to share something profound with our families and friends, the family we're born into and those we choose to make part of our family. We take for granted the presence of the sun in our lives, its impact on us every single day. And for me, 23,180 of them so far. And it's been a constant presence in our lives. But take that away, even for a couple of minutes, and it leaves an impression on you that is remarkable, that you can't get unless you're standing in that shadow. So after the eclipse of 2017, within a couple weeks, we were planning for a trip 7 years later. And we have friends in Waco, Texas, extended family, so we were going to Texas. This is a little clip. It's 20 seconds long, and for the first 5 seconds, you can't tell. But watch the last 15. This is real-time footage. It's that fast. And in the 4 minutes and 20 seconds that we had, we were just a little bit north of Waco, right along the center line, it got that dark. Another magical event where the temperature drops, the corona shines, the stars and the planets come out. All of us missed either school or work to be in that spot at that time, to share the experience with everybody around us. Now, if you're interested in checking out the next one, and we hope that we've inspired all of you to do that, here's your choices. August 23rd, 2024, or 2044. You're going to get a little itty bitty of it, right? But it's there in the United States. Not so good. You could wait another year, and there'll be a wonderful one crossing the United States. But that's August 12th, 2045. If you don't want to wait that long, Bob's talking about Australia. My wife and I are talking about Egypt. And we'll be in the Valley of the Kings for 6 minutes of totality, the longest eclipse for 100 years. Now, being the NASA guy, I can't leave without a photo from the International Space Station. That's what an eclipse looks like from low Earth orbit. That's looking down from the International Space Station on Maine and northern Canada, or eastern Canada. And there's another one here from a weather satellite, or a satellite looking at Earth called Discover. And here's the globe, but watch this as that eclipse path crosses the Earth. So one more time. And now I'm going to let you hear from the world traveler, Mr. Nick Johnson.
Well, thank you, sir. You guys have no idea what it's like trying to follow these four folks behind me. I'm out of my league up here with these guys. Like they said, we all traveled pretty much to see this eclipse. 2017, I went to Nashville, Texas. I packed up my kids, my family. My daughters were like 11 years old at the time. My son was 9, and that was not a fun 3-hour drive with everybody going, "Are we there yet? When are we going to get there?" So we got there. We had clear skies most of the day. As the eclipse started, it was beautiful. And all of a sudden, clouds start rolling in. Now, when you planned a trip like this and you've kept your eyes on the weather, the last thing you want to see is a cloud. So I said some words that the children probably don't need to hear. Cameras, huh? I got to stand in front of cameras, which I don't like to do. But I said some things about these clouds, and right as totality began to happen, this one cloud decided, you don't need to see that, so I'm going to stop right here. So the last picture that I got there was this little sliver. And so at that point, I started planning for 2024. My friends, Stephen Ryan, Daniel Heron, we all get together and decide where we want to go. Well, Stephen has an aunt who lives in Kerrville, Texas, so that was the plan. Kerrville, Texas it is. Leading up to this one in 2024, we keep our eyes on the weather again, and here comes thunderstorms in Kerrville. So alternate plan, Russellville, Arkansas. Cool, we decide on that. 2 days before, nope, not going to Russellville. Going to be cloudy there too. So Stephen decides, I'm not chasing the eclipse that far, I'm going to stay here. And I think he did come over here to Tellus for that day. Daniel and I decided to be road warriors and pack everything up and head to upstate New York. We got about to Winchester, Virginia, spent the night there. Saturday morning, he gets up and he says, "You want the bad news or bad news?" And I said, "Well, why not just take the bad news?" He said, "Well, it's going to be cloudy in upstate New York, so we can either turn around, drive 10 hours back home and call it a day, or we can head to Maine." I said, "Well, we've come this far. I'm not going back home." So we jumped in the car. 10 hours later, we're in Oxford, Maine. Well, Oxford's cool. 14 inches of snow later, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of tired of this snow. I love the snow, but I'm kind of tired of it. So we decided, well, to get where we really want to be, we're going to go 3 hours more north into Jackman, Maine. And that's what we did. We called ahead and we said, "Hey, we'd like to set up in your parking lot of Jackman Hardware." And the guy said, "Yeah, that's fine, you and the 10,000 other people that are going to be here." So we're like, okay. We get there, we kind of scoped the area out, and we were asking if it was okay to park by this 6-foot-tall mound of snow, and the guy was like, "Sure, I don't care." And then his wife says, "Well, why don't you park over here next to the building? We'll save you a spot, we'll keep everybody away from you." And we're like, cool. So that's what they did. 18 hours and 40 minutes later, we're sitting there getting ready to photograph this wonderful eclipse. Some of the photos that I took that day, it absolutely blew my mind because I didn't get to see the one in 2017. So this was a real treat for me. Getting to see the diamond ring, getting to see the corona. The prominences are really what took our breath away because we were watching them naked eye. We look up and of course we see Venus, we see Jupiter, but seeing those prominences like that, we normally have to take out some of this expensive telescope equipment and cameras that we have. I have 13 telescopes and 7 cameras in my house. And so usually I'm using one of those to see stuff like this. This nice program here is the most frustrating thing I think I've ever put my brain through. And I'm going to mention in the middle of all of this trip, I was taking a trigonometry class. So if my brain wasn't fried enough trying to figure out Eclipse Orchestrator, the trigonometry was doing it too. I'm smart enough. I left all my notes at home, so I had to go through every day's worth of class and retake notes and then take a test on Sunday and then try to deal with Eclipse Orchestrator. This picture on the right here is what that looks like. And Eclipse Orchestrator is one I plug into the laptop, plug my camera in, start the program, and it does everything for me. I can sit there and just enjoy the view. And it literally tells me, take the filters off, put the filters on. It goes through every bracketing system of this eclipse. It is complicated, and I probably wanted to throw my computer out the window at the hotel, but with events like this, you think nothing's going to go wrong until the day of, when you know everything is going to go wrong. And David here is our dedicated, everything's going to go wrong for us when we blame it on him, jokingly. But that day, everything decided I'm not going to work until we got to Jackman, and I plugged it in and said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm here, and I'm ready to go." And so this picture on the left is the shadow that Chris showed you from the International Space Station, which was right over us in Maine. It's a really cool picture that Daniel showed me after we got back, and it absolutely blew my mind because sometimes you just don't realize where you are in the moment. These are some more pictures beginning at the top left from just after first contact, and then moving on from left to right, a little shortly after first contact, and then we're close to midway point on the third one. The bottom left picture, we're getting close to totality, and then there's the last little sliver of light before totality, and then we get to the diamond ring and Bailey's beads. And then this little video here is just kind of what we saw. This one was done. I had a DJI camera. It's the same camera that's on my drone. I didn't want to have to fool with putting a drone in the sky, so I just took the little camera. But I think that video is going to play. There it is. I'm looking at the totality as it's going on, and as you can see around us, there's a 360-degree sunset. And you almost miss it until you look down and realize what's going on. We were just blown away seeing all this. And of course, where we were, people were cheering, and somebody decided to shoot off fireworks, which kind of ticked everybody off. But that's what we were looking at. And it was one of those experiences where I couldn't wait to get home and tell everybody and show everybody and, you know, let everybody know what we had seen up there. Because if you're not on that path, you don't get this view, and it's much different being there. And then that is the picture that I put together when I got home. I liked it so much, I had a 20 by 60-inch metal print made and put it on my wall that everybody wants to take when they come to my house, and I almost have to fight people. So that print right there is one that I think we're going to give away. It is framed. It's a 12 by 18-inch print. Somewhere in this room, under one of these chairs, whether it be under your chair or next to you or in front of you, is a yellow star. And whoever finds that star gets to take this print. No, Chris. No, Chris. That's a no, Chris. And I think we have a winner.
And we have a winner. Yay. Let's have a big hand for all of our presenters, please. And my colleague Lauren is going to handle Q&A. And after that, for all my junior astronomers out there, we have some special activities to do with eclipses. And so that'll be over in that corner of the room. And thank you so much for being here. And I'll let Lauren take it away.
Does anyone have any questions for any of the presenters? I can bring you the mic.
You guys mentioned Australia, but what's the eclipse that's happening over Spain in a few years? What is?
That's in August of 2026, and it's coming through Portugal and Spain, and yeah, it'll be good. The only warning I have about traveling to eclipses is that when you travel there, the local hotels and motels know the eclipse is coming through their town, and so usually they take their hotel rates and multiply them by 5 or 10, and it really, I mean, it's something that happens. So if you're planning to go somewhere, make the plans way in advance, because the prices just, keep going up.
Y'all are close by.
I was curious, you guys all talked kind of about recent eclipse, but did you see any when you were little or that inspired you? Like, I saw one in 79. I was about 5, and it was amazing, and it really did inspire me.
It's on. I didn't. Growing up, I was always fascinated with space, but as a kid, you're so busy doing other things. We're out playing basketball and playing football in the middle of the street, and, you grow up and other things take over your life. And so I don't ever remember noticing an eclipse at that age.
My first eclipse, I was in high school, and 1970, and we went up to Canada. Yeah, I know it's a long time ago, but I remember seeing that, and that hooked me. Yeah.
Was that 1970? 1970?
not 18,
Okay, okay. When I was younger, I saw them as partials, and I was not influential enough to get my family to go travel to it. So when I was able to do that, we went.
Yeah, I was in middle school, and it was a partial. We couldn't get out to where it was totality, but I have always been a space nut. So, I was out of school just watching it.
Well, I was only 19 in the 2017 one, so I don't. For me, that was mine. I mean, everybody else talked, so I had to.
What kind of camera did you use, the f-stop and lenses, to take these great shots?
Need the microphone on me, man. I want to talk to people. I had a Nikon D810A camera. It was the telescope I borrowed from Steven, so I don't remember what kind it was. I think it was around 900 millimeter. The f-stop, all of that was set by Eclipse Orchestrator. So I turned it on, plugged it in, and it set everything for me. The frustrating part was going through every single bit of those lines and figuring out exposure levels, what ISO settings. So I basically set them all to 200. And with that program, there's no way for me to see it live, which was also frustrating because, as I do astrophotography, I'm used to seeing my image on my screen as it comes. With this, I took 357 pictures. I didn't know what I had until I got in the truck.
I actually have an interesting question for y'all. If you could associate a sound with the solar eclipse or any eclipse, what would you choose?
Wow. Ooh.
The eclipse itself doesn't make sound. It's the people and the animals and the insects and everything around you that makes the sound. And it's just absolutely magical. You got to go. Get yourself to totality.
It really gets quiet. Just before the crickets start, everything kind of shuts down. It's quiet, and that's the sound I associate with it. The sound of silence, as Karisa says.
I was actually in Arkansas this spring break, and I saw the full total eclipse. It was really cool, and I took like a time lapse on my phone, but I put like a special lens over my phone, and it worked pretty well, but it was cool seeing these really more detailed pictures.
Well, thank you from all of us.
We're working our way around the room.
So for the eclipse this year, being able to see the prominences with the naked eye, is that unusual? Because I saw those this year, but I don't remember ever seeing that like in the 2017. So was that normal or is that unusual?
I want to know why everybody keeps looking at me when y'all ask questions up here. Like there's not five
It's
of us.
unusual, but it just so happened this eclipse happened at solar maximum when the sun was really, really active, lots of sunspots. So I kind of knew in advance that we would see prominences because the sun was so active. So just by sheer luck that the two things happened to coincide.
Well, we had a program with us that showed us the coronal activity. It showed us predictions of solar prominences. And so we kind of knew there may be some visible. We didn't expect anything like that, but we kind of had a heads up.
And the thing to remember about that prominence that you saw is that's coming off the sun, and the loop of that prominence is large enough to hold the Earth inside of it. So just to give you an idea of the scale, that's an enormous piece of plasma coming off the surface of the sun.
Okay, the girl with the microphone actually has a question too, really quick. So you said the reason you could see it so clearly is because we were at solar maximum. Did that have any effect on why we were able to see the northern lights literally here later this season?
Oh, yeah, yeah. More activity on the sun, more energy coming out of the sun. You get the big events that release stuff in the upper towards the magnetic poles of the Earth. So yes, auroral activity is tied to the activity on the sun.
Awesome.
So what are the factors that calculate the occurrence of the total eclipse? Obviously, like the Earth's rotational speed, like the tilt, the moon speed, but then like the 3 centimeter, the moon like moving away from the Earth like 3 centimeter each year or something. So what are some factors that determines or calculate the path of totality?
So specifically the path of totality, it actually is like a patterned series that, like, you can look at I don't remember the exact number of the 2024 one, but I mean, it happens every so often. It's just like, it's mathematical, the path. So we know what the path is, but what really affects the eclipse itself is more so like how far away the moon happens to be, like if it's near apogee or perigee, which is just the farthest point and the closest point. So if the moon is particularly closer, then we'll get the really wide one, like the one in, is Australia the one that was going to be really long? Yeah, like the Australia one, the moon will be closer, the shadow's going to be bigger, so it will last longer, versus, I think the Spain one is is it supposed to be shorter, or short side of average, something like that. So during that one, it's going to be farther away. But, so yeah, the specific path of the eclipse itself, it's math.
I was wondering, what would your favorite part of the eclipse be?
Mine was seeing the corona and the prominences around the edge.
The first seconds of totality, going from a lit normal daytime in the middle of the day, all of a sudden, just like that, it's nighttime. And just seeing this ghostly apparition in the sky where the sun used to be. So you're seeing the new moon, because literally a solar eclipse can't happen unless you're at new moon, when the moon and sun are in the same direction. And the only exception to the rule that you can ever see a new moon is during a solar eclipse. So, right then.
It definitely would have been totality. Hearing everybody cheer. It was loud. It was like a football game outside. Everybody's cheering, clapping, fireworks for some reason. Car alarms are going off. You know, the animals are going to sleep. But that ooh and ah moment, as everything started to take shape, it was unforgettable.
My favorite part was from the part where we left for Texas until we got home.
I mean, for me, you know, my answer may change once I actually see totality, but I mean, there's nothing like, yeah, that was a dig. There's nothing like being in a big crowd of hundreds, if not thousands of people, and just watching everyone experience the same event that you are. So that's always really fun.
Hi. Is it on? Okay. I observed this eclipse in Erie, Pennsylvania for totality. It was 3 minutes, 46 seconds. And my most revealing observation of nature during this time was we were sitting on a bench and a pathway in front of us, and in a circle of about 9 inches, a honeybee fell into the circle and was going all around. He could not find his way because his directional was gone. And it was really interesting to see how he reacted to the totality.
Yeah, that was an interesting. I'm gonna stand up so you can see me. That was an interesting thing where we were. I probably shouldn't say it, but there was a carcass of some sort not far from us, and there was a crow having his meal. And as it got dark, the crow disappeared. And I'm like, yeah, that's usually dinner time for me, buddy. But yeah, it was weird seeing the different animals, how they were responding. And at that time too, stuff started to go a little haywire. You know, Daniel's computer started doing something crazy. So he ended up shutting one of his computers down too. So it was interesting to see. The weather, I think, dropped from 57 down to like 52. So we were having a time over there.
Do we have any more questions? If you do, please raise your hand high because I'm like in the back corner.
How many eclipses have you seen from your childhood to now, and what eclipses are you really excited to see in the future?
Somebody in the back. I got my driver's license on a dinosaur, so I don't think I'm gonna be around for the next one. So these two were it. Maybe if I make it to the next one, I could travel. Dealing with astrophotography, that's just a lot of equipment for us to carry around. We literally loaded up a full-size truck with all of our equipment. So it's a little harder when you're going to take pictures. The next one, if I travel, I may travel just to watch.
So, I mean, obviously, all of them are exciting, right? But it's fun to look at the ones that are happening in the future and going, do I want to go to Spain? Do I want to go to Australia? So just picking wherever the next one could be.
I think I've seen 4 partials, but only 1 totality so far, which was this last one. But I am looking forward. I'm going to do my best to get to Australia because that'll probably be my last one.
I've seen 4 totals and many partials, and thank you. And we'll travel somewhere for another total. I don't think I'm going to be hauling a lot of equipment with me. I just want to go see it, just to experience it. It's amazing. I'll let the professional photographers mail me a picture afterwards.
And I've seen 2 total, handful of partials, and I'm right now trying to convince my wife to go to Egypt in 2027.
Any other questions, comments, anecdotes? Alrighty then. I think that concludes the lecture.
Thanks all for coming, and we have some great activities over here if you want.